Alrighty. So, namaskar and welcome to Garze Marathi Global Canada's webinar for being a first-time homebuyer in Ontario and Canada. Specifically, as me Ontario baddal bolnar ahe because the real estate process in the different provinces does vary. And in GMG Canada, we have members from all over Canada, but this first-time homebuyer seminar is specific to Ontario. So welcome if you are joining us live or if you're viewing the recording after the fact, welcome anyways, and happy to connect with you. माझं नाव Anushree Joshi-Mehendale आहे. I do go by Anu. Just a little bit of background about me. I've been in real estate for over 10 years. मी कॅनडामध्ये आले, माझे आई बाबा इथे इमिग्रेट झाले when I was 5 years old. आणि मराठी माझी मातृभाषा आहे, पण घरी बाबा actually North Indian आहे, तर घरी आम्ही हिंदी बोलायचो. And then in school we did English. So technically Marathi is my third language. So I'll do my best to chat with you guys in Marathi. But a lot of the content, the real estate related content, my professional content will be in English. So just a little bit of background on me, and now I will start the presentation. If you have any questions for those that are with us live, we can hold them till the end, and then you can also use the chat function. And I am sharing my screen full screen. The mala windows and ite saga 90 participants che. So please use the raise hand function if you are interested in asking a question or if you have anything that you want to stop me along the way. Other than that, let's get started. Okay, so buying your first home in Canada, the process does look much the same, but there will be variations, as I mentioned, in Ontario and certain things that are Ontario specific. So that's where we're going to be focusing our presentation for today. In the future, we'd be happy to work with realtors in other provinces as well. But today I'm going to be talking about buying your first home in Ontario specifically. With today's discussion, we'll be discussing initially the GTA market update. सगळ्यांना माहिती करायचं असतं आणि there's a lot of media and content out there as well. की GTA मध्ये आता marketमध्ये काय चालू आहे? How is the market doing? It's a very, very common question. So we're going to discuss what's happening in the market आता. Then we're going to discuss the home buying process in Ontario and the GTA. Then we'll talk about who is involved in your purchase, so all the different professionals. So as you know, I'm a real estate broker, but there is a lot of other professionals that are also involved in the purchase of real estate. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about mortgage financing. Now, I used to have a mortgage license in the past. I don't hold it anymore, but I do have some excellent mortgage partners. Mortgage financing is a very, very big piece of purchasing real estate. Ithe Toronto madhe, GTA madhe, majority of buyers are leveraged, meaning they have mortgages on their property. There's very few people that are cash buyers in the current market and the current economic situation. And because this webinar is specifically for first-time homebuyers, I'll also be talking about benefits that are available to first-time homebuyers. So as a first-time homebuyer, what kind of benefits you can avail, if there's any schemes or any programs that are available to you, we'll talk about that. That's going to take up a pretty big chunk of our time as well. So you get to know how you can make the best of this first-time home purchase. We'll also be discussing next steps and then a Q&A at the end, or I'm also offering one-on-one consultations today, so you can connect with me directly and we can talk about your specific case. Now, this is a little bit about me. I won't go through it, but I'll just highlight right at the end. Real estate, it is my passion. As I mentioned, I've been doing it at the almost 11 varsha zaliye. When I got my real estate license, I was the youngest in the province to have done so. Then when I upgraded to a broker license, teemache statistics मला माहिती नाही, but I'm sure I was also one of the youngest. That being said, I have spent several years in the industry. And more than the number of years I've held my license, it's actually the number of families that I've helped. Now, I don't know the exact numbers, but it is hundreds of people that I've helped move. Initially, me rentals and leasing clients बरोबर काम करायचे. Now I work mostly with buying and selling and also with a lot of investors. I also have landlord clients that now ask me to rent out their properties. And on the side, I also run a property management business. हेच जे माझे clients आहे जे माझ्या बरोबर investment properties purchase करतात. त्यांच्यासाठी त्या properties manage करना, tenant management and ongoing property management ते services पण मी offer करते. So as a first-time homebuyer, a lot of people do get introduced to me. I run these kind of webinars and seminars a couple of times a year, and I'm happy to meet new first-time buyers and share all of my knowledge and experience with them. And then from that, from buying your first home to eventually going from your first home to your family home, I've helped a lot of clients do that as well. So I'm happy to meet all of you, whoever's live and whoever this video connects with after the fact. My focus is to be an excellent realtor and consultant to my clients. So I am a licensed broker. I'm not a salesperson. There's two different levels in Ontario. So I'm a broker now, but I never identified as a salesperson. माझा job sale करणं नाहीच आहे. मी माझ्या clients सांगते की तुम्ही जे घर घेणार आहे, that's going to be the right house for you. I'm not selling any particular property or any particular house to you. And that is true for all of my buyer clients. So my role is more as a consultant to make all of the information, and there's so much information available out there, but to be able to translate that into digestible bits and how it makes sense to you. Got an egg family as a then just a different they have different requirements. I need different information that's relevant to them. Whereas there's another family, their case is different, their requirements are different, and the information that they need access to is different. म्हणून जे आजचं सेमिनार आहे that is targeted towards first-time homebuyers. आणि जे first-time homebuyers जे initial प्रश्न असतात, the things that they are specifically looking for is going to be very different from when you're selling your property and buying another one or upsizing or downsizing. So all of these are very, very different. So today's is going to be focused on first-time homebuyers specifically. And my job here is as a consultant. I also want to highlight number 4, which is I want to serve my community and help others benefit from my expertise. Now, I've been in real estate for 11 years. And as I mentioned, it's not just the number of years that I've held my license, it's the actual number of transactions that I've done, how many things have happened. That all counts as my experience, and I can use that experience to help my clients. Things go wrong in deals. Every deal looks different, every transaction looks different, every home purchase looks different. And so being able to use that experience and expertise, like we're here today, the seminar is completely free of charge, to be able to serve our community and help others benefit from my experience and expertise. Now, we'll get into the most interesting and relevant conversation of the day. For many years, real estate has been a very, very hot topic in the GTA, but in Canada and US as a whole. Everybody always talks about, hey, how's the market? You know, when they hear that I'm a realtor, oh, how's the market doing? Oh, the market's down right now, right? Oh, the market is booming. So any social event that you go to, anywhere you go, it seems that everyone has their pulse on the market, and they would, because it's such a huge economic engine, real estate. So whether you're renting, whether you're a landlord, whether you're a buyer or a seller, or just a homeowner, what's happening in the real estate markets impacts everybody in different ways. So everyone has a pulse on the market. So right now, this is accurate as of fall 2024. We're doing this seminar in September of 2024. For those that might be watching the video later, this is where the market stats are for. So if we're looking at high level, this graph shows the September real estate sales. So sales means number of sales, transactions that occur. So how many homes were sold. So as you can see, 2023 September, which was last year, was the lowest that we've ever had since about 1998 or 1999. Excuse me, since then, we have had all of these booming sales. And again, number of sales, so volume of transactions is what we're looking at. Last year, in 2022, kami hote compared to 2021 and 2020, the COVID pandemic, even though initially 2020 madhe first quarter, so February and March, there was almost no sales, which was crazy. April was also very slow, but the rest of the year picked up. People were very, very active in the real estate market. When we started working from home, lockdowns, people were moving out of the GTA. A lot of people that initially thought they were confined to GTA, now, confined to the city of Toronto, could move elsewhere in the GTA, so just outside of the city, allowing more transactions to occur. So from that boom, And these are just monthly numbers. So this is just September year over year we're comparing. September also kicks off the fall market traditionally. So summer मध्ये relatively slow असतं. Just a lot of families are traveling. People are not here. People want to enjoy. म्हणजे कॅनडामध्ये आपल्याला फक्त 4-5 महिने मिळतात. So most people are enjoying. I have done transactions, several of them in the summer, but compared to fall and spring market, it's a lot less. That being said, September 2020 and 2021 showed very, very high sales. And in 2022 and 2023, it was significantly lower, about half or just under half, which is a crazy drop off. Today is September 30th, 2024. So या महिन्याचे stats अजून आले नाहीयेत. They'll be released in about a week or so, but they will be around that mark. We haven't seen a lot of transactions occurring this year. There's a number of reasons that obviously feed into that. Number one is probably the high inflation. So a lot of people, groceries are expensive, gas is expensive, everything has gotten more expensive from COVID to now, if we're measuring. So that is impacting a lot of people's spending habits. It's impacting their savings. Savings for Canadian families are at an all-time low right now. So that's down payment savings or savings when you're trying to buy a house and have a nest egg sort of put together to that. Those are being used up because of the sharp rise in inflation, sharp rise in prices for common goods, and obviously salaries and stuff are staying the same. Number two, I would say, is the high interest rate, which is impacting the low number of sales that are happening. And we've been pretty much in that case probably since 2022. 22 मध्ये पण first दोन जे quarters होते were very, very active. पण त्याच्यानंतर, not even the full 2 quarters, around April or May, sales started to fall off, and the rest of the year was fairly quiet. And as we see, there was only, even in September, which is supposed to be a traditionally very high market month, we only had about 5,000 sales in 22, 4,600 in 2023, and this year I think it'll be around the same, possibly less. We also are seeing in the market a lot of low discretionary spending. Again, that is a proponent of everything being more expensive than it used to be. Things like entertainment and all the stuff that you would use your discretionary income on, those have risen in price as well, which is affecting overall consumer spending habits. We also see that there's low capacity or interest to move. So हे होतं जेव्हा economic conditions unstable असतात आणि familiesला वाटतं की okay, even if I need more space, I'll be selling this place, moving to another place. It'll probably be smaller and I'll have to pay the same amount for it. So why move, right? I've had that conversation with my clients, both with my downsizing clients and my upsizing clients, that it doesn't make sense for them to make a move. आणि जेव्हा कधी मार्केटमध्ये economic uncertainty असते, फक्त real estate मध्ये नाही, in any sort of in market, like when the tech stocks went down, that impacted real estate, that impacts spending. So it's all interconnected, obviously, in the economy, right? Nothing is standalone. So this sort of economic uncertainty that's kind of across the province, across the country, I see a lot of clients that sometimes they do need to move, but they still have a very low capacity to make that change right now. And I think when more stability comes into the market, consumer confidence increases, people will feel more comfortable about moving. Now, because it's a first-time homebuyer seminar, I will mention that first-time homebuyers are still active in the market. And I have seen this both last year and this year, even though it's been traditionally quiet with the rest of my clients, my first-time homebuyers have been pretty active. Reason for that is it is imperative to a lot of first-time homebuyers that they get into the market, right? जेव्हा आपलं एक काहीतरी घर असते, एक property असते नावावर, मग जे वर खाली होतं in the market, you're basically equity sharing with that. And for the most part, I mean, aside from the last 2 years or so, for the most part, real estate in Toronto and the GTA has gone up. So even if it does like a little up, down, the overall, the line of best fit is going up. So the first-time buyers, it's important for them to get into the market. And so they have been active. I've worked with a lot of first-time home buyers last year and this year as well. But it is markedly more difficult. One of the things contributing to that is strict mortgage regulations. So we'll talk a little bit more about mortgages later and what first-time home buyers can do about it, basically some programs and stuff that are available for first-timers. But we will talk about that. These are all the factors that are kind of impacting the market as it stands right now. Now, if I look at the year-over-year summary, these stats are from the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. That is the real estate board that measures all of the transactions, real estate transactions that are happening all over the GTA. Now, two things I want to highlight. One is this number, the active listings number. So right above that, new listings is 1.5% more than last September. So this is, again, this is from August because we don't have September stats yet. So from August, last year we had about 12,000 new listings in the month of September. In 2024, we had about 12,000 new listings in the month of August, sorry. So in terms of new listings that came on the market in August, it's right around the same. But if we look at active listings, that's the number that I want to look at. Active listings in 2023 August were 15,000. And active listings in 2024 August were 22,000. Now, this is a huge increase of 46.2%. What this means is that new listings is whatever is coming new onto the market that month. But active listings includes whatever came new to the market that month and anything from previous months that was already on the market that didn't sell or wasn't taken off the market. So basically, when we look at inventory, this summer, like in August, we had 22,653 homes on the market, which is crazy. It's almost double what we had last year at the same time. And we're seeing this in the inventory. So in the GTA, I mean, you're driving around, there are a lot of listings that are coming up. A few months ago, that wasn't the case. Nobody was listing their homes. Inventory has always traditionally been very tight in the Greater Toronto area. But what's happening right now is we're seeing a lot of people list their homes, but transactions are not happening. If you look at that first number here, sales, so that's actually number of transactions that have happened. Active listings in August, 22,000, and only 4,900 of them actually sold. So that gives you an idea of what's happening in the market, right? Yes, we are seeing that activity is increasing, so a lot more listings are coming to market, and these are only for sale. We're not looking at lease listings. These are only for sale. So 22,000 for sale, but only about 5,000 of them sold. That will give you a clearer picture of what is actually happening in the market. The second thing that I want to take a look at is the average property days on market, which last year at this time was about a month, just under. Now it's 44 days. So that's also more than doubled in terms of how much time that they're spending on the market, which is, it's evident, right? People are listing, a lot of sellers, they're listing for reasonable prices, but because of what's happening in the market, the buyer pool is so small that the transactions are just not happening. Now, what does this mean for first-time buyers? Obviously, affordability is going to be a component. We have to be able to find something that fits your budget. But when we do, you're most likely going to be getting a really good deal. If anything, you're not going to be competing with multiple offers because there aren't that many buyers in the market. So although it's not a great time for everyone to enter the market, for first-time home buyers, any time is a good time. And a lot of first-time home buyers have been chasing the market increases. Right now, we're seeing, especially the second half of last year and this year, we're seeing that the market is playing catch up, right? A lot of size up buyers, a lot of downsizing buyers, they're out of the market. They don't want to make any sort of move. And so that buyer pool that's active in the market has decreased, which gives a really unique opportunity for first-time home buyers to come in and at a reasonable price. Like, I'm not saying prices have crashed, they have not, but at a reasonable price and with reasonable conditions, get into property ownership. Now, the last thing I'm going to share with you in terms of statistics, I know this is a little stats heavy, but I like to help my clients make evidence-based decisions. And this is the evidence, right? This is what's happening in the market. If you approach a realtor that says, oh yeah, the market's doing great, or if you approach a realtor and they say, oh yeah, the market's doing really crap, that's fine, but those are personal opinions. I'm not in the business of giving my personal opinion. This is what helps me formulate my professional opinion, and this is what's helpful to my clients. That's why we're going so in detail about what's happening in the market. So here as well, I'd like to highlight a couple of things. If we look at, again, this is from August 2024. If we look at year-over-year changes, the only house type that has gone up in value or in price has been detached homes, specifically in the 416. So this is City of Toronto, not including the rest of GTA, right? So in the 416, detached homes in terms of sales, so sales means units, number of sales, that has gone up 8.3% last August to this August. And price, not a huge increase, but 3.2% increase in the average price. Again, only in the 416, which is only the city of Toronto. Every other housing type, semi-detached, townhouse, condo, apartment, anywhere. So whether it's in the 416 or the 905 or the average of both, number of sales have gone down, everything is minus, and average price has gone down, everything is minus, right? We are seeing that across the board. And these are the only, basically the detached homes in Toronto are the only ones that have gone up. Everything else has gone down in the last year. Now, two other things I wanted to highlight is what's happening in Toronto itself for the townhouses and condos. So these are the ones that have taken the price hit significantly. आता condo market मध्ये खूप inventory आली आहे marketवर. Primary reason for that is investors ज्यांनी घेतलं होतं ते rent out करायला. Rental market is booming, no doubt. आपल्याकडे नवीन जेव्हा immigration येतं, anyone new that's entering the country, whether it's students, temporary workers, PR, most of them are choosing the renting route, at least for the first 1 to 3 years of them coming to Canada. So these newcomers, they need a place to live. So the rental market is absolutely booming everywhere, specifically in Toronto. But in terms of purchases, because right now we're just talking about purchasing, the normal trajectory as they new to Canada as the Kema, they're moving out of their parents' home and they're going to university and then they're moving out into their own home, getting their first official lease, right? Non-student official lease. All of these renters, the natural trajectory is at some point, a lot of them move from the rental market to the purchasing market. But in the last little bit, what's happened, all of the factors that we discussed earlier, the economic factors, the inflation rate, the overnight interest rate, the qualification process, which is extremely difficult right now. These are the ones that are suffering the most because townhouses and condo apartments are primarily bought by first-time home buyers, right? There's a lot of people that just can't buy right now. So that's why these have taken a hit. Now, the hit in the GTA has not been as significant. GTA market and Toronto market is very different. I'll also talk a little bit more about condos later. When we talk about average prices, I'll talk about condos. When we talk about a condo apartment in Toronto versus a condo apartment in the GTA, so Mississauga, Brampton, Milton, wherever, we're talking about two different things. It's not apple to apple comparison. And that's why we have to break down all of these things to understand what's actually happening in the market. Now, if we look at average price, again, we're going back to August 2024, so last month. This month's stats have not yet been released. I'm going to go through some average pricing, right? कारण माझे clients मला विचारतात की आता मला 2 bedroomचं condo घ्यायचं असेल तर what will it cost me? Or मला semi-detached घ्यायचं असेल in Mississauga. What am I looking at, right? So community to community, there's differences. Like even within Mississauga, if you're buying in Erin Mills versus if you're buying, in Cooksville, two completely different price points, two different communities. So Mississauga, that's the overall stat घेऊन, it's not very helpful, but still right now, because we're not going into that much detail on in the seminar format, I'm going to give you some averages so you have an idea of what you can expect given the current statistics. So if we're looking at condos, the way that Treb reports stats, it's condos that are any size. So it can range from studio condos all the way to up to 3-bedroom condos. So Brampton मध्ये condoचं कुठल्याही size तुम्हाला घ्यायचं असेल, the average right now is about 541K. Realistically, I would be looking around 540 to 550. Reason being, Brampton मध्ये जी mostly जे condos आहे, they are around the 2-bedroom. Brampton, when the condos were developing in the past, it was seen as suburban, it was seen as like a family kind of city. It still is. And so a lot of the condo units are larger units. There's not as many investor-based units. There are many, but they're mostly family occupied. A lot of them are owner occupied, and most of them are 2 bedrooms or larger. So if you're looking at a 2-bedroom, you would be looking in Brampton at around 550K. Now, any size of condo in Mississauga, right now the average price is 607. Now in Mississauga, trajectory is slightly different. It's different from Brampton. Brampton is mostly owner occupied, even if it's rentals. They've been owned by, an investor for some time, but they are 2-bedroom or larger units. Now in Mississauga, that trajectory is different. In the last couple of years, depending on, how new or old you are to Mississauga, 10 वर्षापूर्वी जे Square Oneच्या तिथे जे towers आहे आत्ता आज उभे आहेत. 10 years ago, I would say about half of them did not exist. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. When I was a kid, when we used to go to Square One, there was a handful of buildings there, Burnham, Thorpwood, and etc. But now what it looks like, that concrete jungle that's being built there, it's all new development. And when we look at new development in condos, we have to keep in mind that builders the main काम असतं getting the most value per square foot for the builder, right? Not for the buyer, not for the occupant. So that means that the sizes of units have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller over time. Before, a 2-bedroom would be maybe 1,000 square feet. Today, तुम्ही कुठल्याही builderला विचारा की how much square footage do I need for a 2-bedroom? They say, oh, give me 650 and I'll make it work. So that's their job, right? To decrease the footprint and make more money per unit. But what that does is when we look at condos in Mississauga, we have to be aware that last 10 varshat unit composition तिथे खूप बदललंय. Initially, the older buildings in Mississauga, ते पण मी Bramptonचं जे trend सांगितलं तसेच होते. They were 2-bedroom units, 2+ den, some 1+ dens, but overall they were larger units made for families. Today, if you look at all the new buildings that are going up around Square One and elsewhere, a lot of them are going to be 1-bedroom, 1+ den units. Not as many studios because that's not popular in Mississauga, but 1-bedroom ranging up to 2 bedrooms. 3 bedrooms is completely unheard of. 3 bedrooms Mississaugaमध्ये म्हणजे तुम्हाला फक्त जुन्या buildingsमध्ये आणि like penthouses of the newer buildings त्याच्यात मिळतील. Other than that, it's around the 1-bedroom, 1+ den to 2-bedroom kind of mark. So if you're looking at a 2-bedroom in Mississauga, you'd be looking at around 650. Even the average price for all condo units is around 607. I think it would be closer to 650 for the 2-bedroom kind of setup for a family. Now, moving to Toronto, things are very, very different. The average price for any condo size is 681. So it seems like okay, Mississauga and Toronto मध्ये खूप फरक नाहीये. But keep in mind, Toronto मध्ये जी development झाली in the last 10 to 15 years, in any given development, about 50% of the units in pre-construction, they're studio, which is no bedroom. It's just like an open hall that doubles as a bedroom, kitchen, and that's it, in the bathroom, obviously. Studio, 1-bedroom, 1+ den, 2-bedroom, and that's pretty much it. Even 2 bedrooms are so rare. 3 bedrooms, that's it's only in, again, penthouse, or if you're doing a townhouse or a podium of a condo or something like that, but they're not at all common. So this stat, even though it looks like okay, average condo price Mississauga मध्ये फक्त 607 आहे आणि Toronto मध्ये it's barely different, it's 681. Keep in mind that the division of units, you're going to have hundreds of more studio units, hundreds of more 1-bedroom units. So Toronto मध्ये तुम्हाला 2-bedroom unit हवं असेल, condo unit, you're looking close to 750 or in and around there, the mid 700s for a 2-bedroom unit, even though the average is 681, because majority of the units that are being sold and that are changing hands are going to be studio units, 1-bedroom units, etc. So condo market is a little nuanced. Each city looks a little bit different. Each type of home looks a little bit different. So we'll obviously talk in detail about that if that's something you're interested in. Next up, we have townhouses. So these are the average prices for townhouses. I won't go through all of them in detail. These are particularly freehold prices, and this is accurate as of August 2024. If you're looking at a condo townhouse, because there's 2 types, there's freehold townhouse and condo townhouse. Condo townhouses are usually a little less expensive than freehold. They're cheaper, but they do have a monthly condo maintenance fee that is included. So तुमचं overall price थोडी decrease होते, but monthly outgoing थोडं increase होऊ शकतं based on the maintenance fee. And last but not least, we have detached homes. If you're looking for a detached home in Oakville, we're touching almost 2 million average now. I mean, Oakville has had real estate at or above 2 million for many, many years, but now the average is touching 2 million. So again, won't go into detail, but just wanted to share with you some information about what things are looking like in different cities. Now, let's move on to the home buying process in Ontario. So this is also going to take a big chunk of today's presentation. So I'm going to give you the high-level steps of the home buying process. Depending on each family, depending on each case, depending on each mortgage type, each property type, what city we're shopping in, what time of the year it is, there's so many different variables. But this is just sort of high-level what you can expect. And जेव्हा आपण house hunting process सुरू करू, then we'll go through this again, and then I'll be able to discuss one-on-one the nuances and the different things that occur in each step. But right now, again, it's just high level. So 6 step, but I actually increased it to 7 steps just before the presentation, so don't mind that. Number 1, and the most important thing, is going to be to find a realtor that you trust. Okay, trust is very, very important. There are in the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. So that's the real estate board that reports all the listings and has the realtor members from all over GTA. There's 74,000 real estate agents as of right now. 74,000. So yeah, when you think, okay, every street you'll find a new realtor, it is true. Yes, you will find a licensed agent. Yes. But having experience and actually working in the market day to day is a very, very important factor. 74,000 licensed agents, they do not practice real estate as their full-time. They do not practice real estate regularly, and about 10% of them, only 10% of them do more than 2 deals a year. And why I share that statistics is because out of the 74,000, if 98% of them are doing 0 or 1 or 2 deals a year, why we don't in the community we don't always count that is because स्वतःचं घर लिस्ट करायला खूप लोक real estate license घेतात, which I think is absurd. Like if you got into a legal situation, would you go to law school and write the bar exam to defend yourself in court? No, you wouldn't do that. But for realtors, I mean, the licensing requirements are such that they think, okay, well, I'll save some money, I'll go get my real estate license and I'll sell my own house and buy my own house. No problem. If you want to do that, that's completely fine. But the point is, somebody that sells 0 to 2 homes, so स्वतःचं घर लिस्ट केलं, that's 1 transaction, आणि स्वतःला राहायला दुसरं घर घेतलं, that is 2 transactions. We don't count that because they haven't met any clients. They don't know what's happening in the market. They probably haven't shopped around for mortgages. They don't talk to clients one-on-one. There's no boots on the ground. There's no experience there, right? The expertise is going to be limited. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that there's a big difference in the expertise that they can bring to the table if they're not doing it every day. So most important thing is to choose a realtor that you trust. I've had clients in the past that have been with other realtors that said, we had a terrible experience. Can you please help us? And it breaks my heart to hear these kind of stories because this is your biggest transaction that you're going to do. Apan gaadi kheto 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 GST, right? And we think about it, we say, okay, well, we'll come back and we'll figure something out. When you're buying a house, it's probably going to be the biggest financial decision of your life. So even if it's not me, and that's fine, you're welcome to choose whoever you like, but make sure that you trust that person and make sure that they have the experience to back up what they're saying because you're going to need it, right? You're relying on this person's advice to make very important and very big decisions about your life. It's extremely important to have somebody that is trustworthy and experienced. So once you've come to me, you've chosen me as your realtor that you trust, the next step is to get pre-approved for your mortgage. So this is very important. I've heard in the past clients and my colleagues and stuff, they do things a different way. First, they start shopping for homes, then they go to the mortgage situation. I don't do that. I learned this very early on. Initially, मी पण तेच करायचे because मला वाटलं तसंच करतात, right? But what I realized is once we started seeing homes, people didn't actually have an idea of what their budget is, right? And what your budget is, meaning what you're comfortable paying for per month versus what the bank is willing to lend to you. And what the bank thinks your budget is can be 2 different things. And what we found at that time was I was going and I was showing these homes. People were falling in love with homes that were way above their budget. We put in an offer and it didn't work out, or even if it did work out, then they went to their bank and then that didn't work out because they're like, no, your budget isn't, XYZ. You have to shop at a lower price point or what have you. So I changed up my process and I put getting pre-approved for the mortgage right at the beginning. So when we talk about the home buying process, we're going to talk about a lot of the like the house and what your requirements are and stuff, but that comes later. First, we're going to go to a bank or a mortgage broker. So I work with a team of mortgage brokers. I used to have a mortgage license myself, but I don't have it anymore. But I got it so that I would be able to understand the mortgage process inside out. And so we get a consult from a mortgage broker. They look at your documents and we'll talk in detail about what they look at later. But they look at that and they tell you, okay, this is how much you can get approved for based on your current, your income and all of your details. And then we take that budget, we set that, and then we start looking at homes. Okay, so that is going to be step number 1. Step number 2. Then number 3 is actually getting into the market. So we start researching the market and setting your priorities. So this is a question की तुम्हाला घरात काय हवंय, किती bedrooms हवे, किती bathrooms हवे, तुम्हाला GTA मध्ये कुठे राहायचंय, what your other priorities are, right? For people with kids, okay, we need a backyard, or we need access to a school, or we need to be on a school bus route. For people that don't have a car, okay, we need public transit in the area so we can commute to work. All of these things, we talk about this at this stage. Okay, and then we're previewing the property online. So you're looking at properties on realtor.ca, which is the public portal, and I'm looking at properties for you on the MLS system, which is the back end that only agents have access to. So we're both looking at these. I'm sending you listings, you're sending me listings. We're talking about the different neighborhoods, different types of properties. When I send you a list of homes, you're going to look at them and you're going to ask me questions that, hey, Anu, what does the maintenance fee in this condo townhouse cover? Or, hey, Anu, what do you think about this neighborhood, right? So we're talking about all of these things, and we're doing our research before actually getting into the market. Next is actually seeing the homes. So after we've done our research, you've narrowed down कुठले neighborhoods तुम्हाला हवे, काय काय तुमच्यासाठी priority आहे, आणि budgetच्या बेसिसवर आपण कुठे जाऊ शकतो, right? Because that's also a consideration. If you say, okay, I have a budget of 800, and I want to live in Oakville, I'll say, okay, well, are you willing to buy a 2-bedroom condo? And if you're not, if you need a house, you need a backyard, you need a garage, we have to move from Oakville, we have to move somewhere else, right? So we do all of that. That's part of researching the market. But once we have an idea of तुम्हाला जे हवंय ते कुठे मिळणार आहे, we focus our search there, and then we actually start seeing homes in person. Okay, so these are the showings. So you're going out with your realtor. It can be on a weekend, it can be on a weekday. Gem market खूप active असते. Many times I've gone for showings in the middle of the week after work, right? Because homes were selling. आता मी stats दाखवले, property days on market was 44 days. At one point, it was 4 days. And so if you didn't get out there after work today itself, it was going to sell by the weekend, right? So this, again, depends on what's happening in the market. Now, that's not as much the case anymore. Things are not selling in 4 days. So if you want to wait till the weekend, we can do that, no problem. Again, it's my job to keep you posted की market मध्ये काय होतंय, कसं होतंय, आणि how to put your best foot forward, right? That's my job, to represent you in the market and how to make sure that we achieve your goals. So we go and view these homes and condos that meet your requirements, and then we narrow down to a top 1 or 2 that meet your requirements. Now, me numbers इथे दिले, like top 1 or 2 options, or when we see homes, we see 5 or 6 when we go out for showings. I put the numbers there just for an example, right? काही माझे clients आहे that have asked me in the past की, oh, do you have a cap on the number of homes that you show? So is there any limit? So the answer to that is no. There is no limit. I am willing to show you unlimited homes. And from my side, there's never any pressure to put in an offer on any particular home, okay? That is my guarantee from my end. Now, while that holds true, my job is to get to know you, get to know your requirements, get to know your budget, and present you with options that make sense for you. I've heard from my colleagues in the past, ek colleague hota, he was working with his clients for a year and a half or a year or so, and they showed him, he showed his clients 70 homes, 70. So to me, I've never shown 70 homes to one client in my life, in my entire career, okay? And a reason for that is, if I am showing my client 70 homes and they don't like any of them and they don't feel comfortable offering on any of them, there's nothing wrong with my client. That is my fault as a realtor, okay? For showing you things that don't fit your budget, for showing you things that you are not going to like, for showing you things that are outside your preferred neighborhood, for showing you things that are never going to meet your requirements, right? So for me, yes, I will show you unlimited homes, no problem. पण जेव्हा आपण पहिल्यांदा बाहेर जातो to see homes, it's my goal that even if you don't offer on any of them, that you at least like most of them. So that's just a personal benchmark that I set for myself. For most of my clients, that is the case. कधी-कधी होतं की they have certain requirements, certain budget, they pick a certain, city or neighborhood to explore. And the first time we go out for showings and they just say, okay, well, you know what, we don't like the vibe of the neighborhood. हे कुठली घरं आम्हाला आवडली नाही. We can't see ourselves here. And you know what? That's completely fine. After that, we go back to the drawing board, we figure out some other options, and then we book new showings, right? We start the research process again. So sometimes it can take time, but I'm here with you from start to finish. So to me, again, unlimited showings, but I'd like to at least have you see some places that you actually like, right? I don't want to waste your time showing you homes that are above your budget or in a city that you're never going to move to. So that's my goal. Now, next is when you do find a house, the top 1 or 2 options that do meet your requirements, we would place an offer and potentially negotiate. Before any offer. So an offer is basically a buyer saying, okay, to the seller that I'm putting my offer to purchase in writing. Offer made, this is the price that I want it for. This is what I'm going to move in. This is my terms and conditions. These are the house details. This is how much deposit I'm going to give, and this is when we're gonna close. That's basically what an offer is, right? When we're coming up with a price to place an offer, I would do a CMA, and this is a very important thing. Again, not all realtors do this, and I think it's unfortunate because it hurts the client at the end of the day. We do a CMA on any house that you want to offer on. A CMA is a comparative market analysis. So if we're in a community and the homes there sell for $1 million and somebody has listed for 1.5, even if the listing price is 1.5, it doesn't mean we're going to buy it for 1.5. We do the CMA to see त्या एरियामध्ये last 30 to 60 to 90 days मध्ये काय विकलं गेलंय, कुठले type of homes, किती priceचे, how do they compare to this house in terms of upgrades and upkeep and all of that. And we come up with a price, a valuation for that home. And then based on that, we decide an offer price, okay? An offer price is never based on listing price. Some sellers are unreasonable. त्यांना माहिती असतं किंवा त्यांना त्यांच्या एजंटना पण माहिती असतं आणि आपल्याला माहिती असतं की that 1.5 home is actually only worth 1 million, right? But they'll still be unreasonable to list it for 1.5. But based on the comparative market analysis, I would never let you put an offer for 1.5 because it doesn't make sense, right? And that's why I do the CMA. CMA also works in the other process. I'm sure you're aware, if you're listening to the news or anything really, it was so common. Homes that were worth 1 million, there were listing agents and sellers that were listing them for $699 or $799 or $899, right? Again, if I see a listing that is $699, so it's listed for $700,000, but in that area, all of those homes, that type of home, similar upkeep, similar garage, same lot size, all of that, if those are selling for around $1 million, obviously this one that's listed for $799 is underlisted, right? Or $699. That's not the offer price that they're expecting. They're expecting there to be a bidding war and for it to go above. So this kind of gets tricky, but that's where the CMA comes in again, so that you and I know, like when my buyer clients are looking at this property, they know, and I show them, this is the value of the house. If it's above our budget, let's not waste our time, right? Let's not get into this trap of, these listing agents and the sellers that list low and then expect to sell high. It's a silly tactic. I don't like it. I've only done it once or twice ever at the request of my seller, but I don't like the tactic. It doesn't make sense. So the CMA basically protects the buyer and they know exactly what value they're putting forward. Okay. So we would basically put an offer on the home that you like. Sometimes it's, it works right on the first try. Sometimes we have to negotiate. Negotiation पण वेगवेगळ्या, ह्यानी होऊ शकतं. Basically, price is not the only thing that we can negotiate on. Yes, price is pretty major. That is often a negotiation, but there's other things. For example, the terms and conditions that you're going to put, right? Condition की आम्हाला home inspection करायचंय. 5 दिवस लागतील. And the seller says, no, you don't need 5 days. Can you do it in 3 days, right? That's a negotiation. Deposit amount असतं. Okay, we're going to put a $50,000 deposit. Seller says, no, I want a $100,000 deposit. That's a negotiation. So negotiating can be done in a number of different ways. And that looks different case by case. So really, I can't say anything more about it. It'll just depend the house that we're offering on and the seller that we're working with. So that will look different in different ways. If the offer is accepted, right, after negotiations and whenever the offer gets accepted, you submit an initial deposit. Now, the initial deposit is something that you need cash in hand when we start shopping. The initial deposit goes after the offer is accepted, and this initial deposit money, so let's say it's $20,000, $30,000, normally it's 5% of the purchase price. But again, it is negotiable. It just depends on what you're willing to offer and what the seller is willing to take. This deposit goes to the listing brokerage's office, and then they forward it to the lawyers who gives it to the bank. It makes part of your down payment. So let's say तुमच्या down payment साठी तुम्हाला 100,000 हवे आणि त्याच्यातनं आता आपण 20,000 as initial deposit देतो. At the end, the bank will count that 20,000 and then you will only pay an additional 80,000 on closing. जे काय असेल तुमचं total down payment requirement त्याच्यातनं आपण initial deposit minus करून घेतो. So it contributes all to your down payment. But the initial deposit just goes in at the beginning. That's basically your money in trust. The deposit is refundable in the case of a conditional offer. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next thing, in the next point. But if you're putting an offer with conditions, for example, home inspection. So I agree to purchase this property at this price, close on this date, these are my terms and conditions, whatever. Conditional upon doing, a home inspection. if your offer is conditional, and there's a number of days, so it could be 3 days, it could be 24 hours, it could be 6 days, it varies. That initial deposit is refundable in the case that the conditions don't work out and we have to back out of the deal. Okay, so if we put a deposit of 20,000 on the house that you like, then we do a home inspection, and the home inspection, there's some things that come up. Now, we do have options. We can still go for it if you think it's okay. We can back out if you think it's not okay. We can negotiate with the seller to give us some money to fix things. There's a number of things that we can do, right? This is just an example. But if for whatever reason you get the home inspection report, you say, okay, Anu, bad vibes yetate, we just want to back out. Okay, that's okay. So when we're in the conditional period of the house, you can actually back out, and then you get your $20,000 or whatever. You get your initial deposit back. Now, in another case scenario, आपण offer टाकलं, मग ते accept झालं, with or without negotiation, आपण ते 20,000 initial deposit दिलं, then we do our home inspection. Everything goes perfectly fine. We do our financing, everything goes perfectly fine. Then we sign additional paperwork for the offer to be firm. And once the deal is firm, then the house is essentially yours. We're just waiting for the closing. In that case, obviously, after that point, the deposit is not refundable because you're completely comfortable moving forward. And then that gets sent to the lawyer, gets sent to the bank, and counts as part of your down payment. So that's just a little bit of details about the initial deposit. Now, point number 6, or step number 6, is completing due diligence. So what I was speaking about right now, the due diligence, home inspection is one of them, getting your financing done. So आधी आपण step 2 मध्ये आपण pre-approval घेतलं, right? Pre-approval is based on your current information, your salary, and all of that, what you should be able to get approved for. But when we actually have an agreement to purchase and sale, the offer is signed, you have to go back to either the mortgage broker or the bank, and then they actually do your mortgage application for real. And then you have maybe 3 or 5 days to do that. Some people are comfortable with their financing. They have no problem. Sometimes they don't put a condition. It really depends on case to case, right? So we do all of those things, and that's completing the due diligence, excuse me. Status certificate ची पण एक condition असते that is only applicable if you're buying a condo. But I won't go into detail about this right now. That's more of a one-on-one thing based on what you're looking at. But this is the step where we complete all the due diligence, make our offer firm, and then we're just waiting for closing. So the second part here, I do part 1 and part 2 of due diligence, because part 1, so financing, home inspection, status certificate, कधी-कधी rural property असते, तेव्हा आपण survey घेतो. So if it's like a farm property or something like that, we have to do a survey, because where the actual farm starts and ends. कधी-कधी rural properties मध्ये wells असतात, dug water wells. So we do a separate inspection for the well, or we measure the water quality or something like that. जे काय असेल तुम्हाला त्या केसवर तुम्हाला घालायचं असेल as due diligence, we put that as a condition, and then we're able to complete that together. So the buyer, you guys are involved, I'm involved, and then one professional is involved. So financing sati, we talk to a mortgage broker. Home inspection sati, we work with a mortgage inspector. For status certificate, we talk to a lawyer. So there's other professionals involved, but basically we're facilitating part 1 together, okay? Part 2 of the due diligence and closing is only what happens at the lawyer's office. So after we've done our steps, so financing, home inspection, these basic conditions are done, we're firm on our offer, त्याच्यानंतर ती जी deal असते, ते जे papers असतात, they get forwarded to your lawyer. And now the buyer's lawyer, so your lawyer, and the seller's lawyer are talking, completing their due diligence, and communicating with each other. At that point, the deal and everything is with them, and they're taking care of it from then until the closing. So closing means title, your name gets transferred onto title on the day of closing, and you actually become the legal owners of that property. So ते सगळं करणं त्यांचा role असतं. That's why I list it separately as part 2. Throughout the process, I'm still here. I'm still here as your resource. And a lot of times I handhold my clients right from the beginning to the end. But the legal portion of the things happens with your real estate lawyer. Last is moving into your new home. You have a party, you call me, we have a great time. Okay, so that is the 6, technically 7-step process into moving into your own home. So I know that was a lot. Anyone who's with me online, do you guys have any questions at this point? I'll just pause for a moment. Okay.
Hey, hi, Anu. This is Kaustubh. Thanks. It was great so far. It's really informative. I just wanted to know, this kind of is halfway point, it seems. So I believe there are 11 more slides to go. So what are we covering in the next half?
So the next half, we're going to be talking about Sorry, let me put this away. We're talking about mortgage financing. We are talking, basically it's details about the mortgage and who's involved in your real estate process. So just being mindful of time. I know we started a little bit after 12. So if you guys have maybe 10 to 15 minutes, I can wrap it up in another 10 to 15 minutes. Does that work?
Yep. I may still have to drop. I'll catch up on the recording.
No problem.
But I'll try to stay for a few more minutes, but I may have to drop.
No problem. Thanks for letting
But
me
this
know.
is great. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
for
so
sure.
much.
All right, I'll move right along. So next up is who's involved in your purchase. So again, your realtor, I'm here with you from the start to finish, but there's other people that are involved as well. We have showing agents. So sometimes if I'm in one part of the city, I need, I have multiple clients that need showings the same day. I have showing partners, so showing agents that will take you and help you see all the homes. And then we come back and discuss things together. I have a mortgage partner, legal partner, home inspector. So everyone that I work with in order to do what I do. From the outside, it looks like a one-woman show, but it's not. All of these people are working with me and with my clients to make things happen, okay? So when we do work together, you get access to everyone. If you have any questions, you'll be always given the best referrals to make sure that what you need gets done, okay? And if I can't do it, I'll find somebody that can. Now, let's talk about mortgage financing. This is a pretty big piece. Again, won't go into too much detail, but just to give you an idea of what's happening. Mortgage stress test. So this is one of the biggest things that a lot of people actually don't know about, okay? Mortgage stress test is you have to qualify from the bank. You have to qualify at N plus 2%. So let's say the overnight interest rate right now is 4.5, right? So you would have to qualify based on your income and all of your numbers at plus 2%. So it's 6.5% to see if based on those payments, if you're going to be able to make those payments. The bank tests this. They put you through a mortgage stress test. Current future, for example, आता तुम्हाला 4.5 वर mortgage दिलं, आणि in the future, the rate goes up to 6.5, which we saw in the last couple of years. They want to know that you can still make the payments. And that's why they assume, for the application purposes, they assume that the interest rate is 2% higher than what they're actually going to give you, so that you can you can still pay it in case it goes up in the future. Okay, everyone has to go through this. And this is the magic formula for mortgage financing. They look at your income, they look at your credit score, and they look at your debt service ratio. So income, very self-explanatory. Different things can count in certain cases. Child tax credit also counts if you have kids. Bonuses that you get at work, you can't count all of them. There is a discount rate and whatnot, but those can count towards your income. Credit score has to be minimum 680, but if you want access to the best rates, it should ideally be higher than 730. But that changes bank to bank. And then debt service ratio is basically, even if you have a lot of income, if you're spending all of it on car leases, then your debt service ratio is going to be very high, right? So that's another thing that they look at. Again, not going into too much detail, but that's what they would look at. If you have questions, just reach out to me one-on-one. Okay, first-time homebuyer benefit. So this is the important part that we're going to talk about. And the programs are very specific. Not everyone can avail them. So I'll talk over them briefly. And then if you have questions about the specific programs, please reach out to me directly. Okay, so number one is the RRSP homebuyers plan. This means that a first-time homebuyer can take up to $35,000 out of their RRSP to pay for their down payment. Now, RRSP is tax deductible, meaning that if you put that money into your RRSP, you don't have to pay any income tax on it. So when you take it out of the RRSP, you have to pay income tax on it, but not under the home buyer's plan. If you're taking it out of your RRSP to pay for your down payment, you don't have to pay tax on it. So it's basically a tax-free saving mechanism. Second first-time homebuyer benefit is 5% down payment if you qualify. So again, your income, your credit, your debt service ratio, they all have to qualify. But if that all works out, if the math works, then you can buy your property for as less as 5% down payment or minimum down payment. There's a formula for that as well. But if you're not a first-time buyer, then you can't do that. Okay. You also get access to CMHC insured mortgage rates. So with a down payment of less than 20%, you have to have a CMHC insured mortgage, meaning the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation insures your mortgage to make sure that if you stop paying, the bank doesn't go belly up. But what this allows you to do is get actually better rates because you are an insured mortgage. Yes, there is an additional cost associated with the CMHC insurance, but it's mandatory if you're putting less than 20% down. You also get a land transfer tax rebate. This is only allowed for first-time home buyers on their first-time home purchase, up to $4,000 in the province of Ontario. If we're buying in the city of Toronto, there's an additional rebate because unfortunately there's an additional tax. So you do get a rebate of up to $4,000. You also have access to down payment financing. So let's say you need $100,000 to buy your first property and you only have $80,000 saved up. If you need down payment financing, there are programs available where you can help cover that additional cost with financing in place. Recently, the federal government just announced that as of next month, I believe it's next month, you can do up to $1.5 million purchase without requiring 20%. For many, many years until now, CMHC required and the bank required that if you're buying a property that's 1 million or greater, you have to put minimum 20% down. Even if your income is high, even if your debt service ratio checks out, you still have to put minimum 20% down from a property that's higher than $1 million. Right now, they just raised that limit. So up to 1.5, if you can qualify with your numbers at 10% down, you can do 10% down. You don't have to do 20% down. If it's higher than 1.5, then you have to pay 20% down payment. This is the first home savings account, the FHSA, which is also a tax deductible scheme, which the federal government announced a couple of years ago. You can basically save up to $40,000. And it's tax deductible, so you don't have to pay income tax on it, specifically for your savings, for your down payment for your first home. And as always, if you're on the buy side of the transaction, your realtor's fees are complimentary, so you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. The seller will pay my fees. All right, so next steps. We're right at the end of the presentation. So if you are looking to purchase a home after 6 months, so spring next year or after, I would encourage you to book an online consult on my website. We can start planning and just have an initial conversation in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then the actual process for house hunting, the mortgage, the actual looking at properties, that starts about 120 days or 4 months before you're actually looking to purchase. But planning can get started at any point, so feel free to book an online consult. If you're looking to buy before then, before spring of 2025, 0 to 6 months, call me right now. We should start your process very soon. There's a lot of moving parts to get sort of all the ducks in a row. We can start shopping again 3 or 4 months before, but the planning should start now. So feel free to call me at any time. That brings us to the end of our presentation for today. Are there any questions that I can take at this time?
Hey, hi, Anushree. It was a good seminar. Thank you for the information.
Of course.
I have a quick question. So, regarding the first-time home buyer, I was under the impression like even for a property above 1 million, we need to do a 20% payment, down payment. So, a minimum for that, like a 10% or something, or?
Yeah, so how it works is basically, you can hear me okay, right? Sorry, your voice cut out.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think.
Okay. So how it works is 5% actually is up to a property purchase price of $500,000. Okay. Any balance of that. So let's say it's a $600,000 property. The $100,000 that's above $500K would be at 10% down payment.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So any portion above 500K is at 10%. That is the minimum. So when we talk about a minimum down payment, it's not 5% across the board. It would be essentially it would be 10% from 501,000 all the way to 1.5. So it would be 10% of that, and then 5% of the first 500,000. That would be the minimum payment. Now you still have to qualify, right? So your household income has to be a certain amount, your liabilities have to be a certain amount to qualify. But if you do qualify, that's the least that you would have to pay.
Okay, okay, makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. All right, so if that's all for the questions, I will let you guys go. Thank you so much for being here, whether you're online or watching the recording later. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with all of you. I will share my contact information and details in a follow-up email, but thank you very much for being here today. Namaskar.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye.